Smith, and I'm here with Leah Reynolds, who's the National Lead for Generational Strategies at Deloitte Consulting LLP. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you, Stan. It's so nice to be here.
Well, before we get started, or as we get started, why should any CEO care about what generations want and what their desires are? We're right in the middle of a huge recession.
Well, I would say, even though it's very counterintuitive, that the recession buys you a golden opportunity to mix up the generations in a very advantageous way to your bottom line, a way that you probably couldn't have gotten away with a year ago, but current economic condition gives you a reason to rethink things significantly in your own favor.
Can you give me an example? I mean, it sounds great, but what about a tangible example?
How about taking young talent that's eager for audacious opportunities and will take on risks as long as they know they have somewhat of a safety net, so the right kind of mentor or experienced person to partner along with them, which is a way you could use some of your baby boom talent that you don't want to lose from an experience standpoint. Re-incentivize that baby boomer to be a fabulous mentor to that young person, but give that young person a goal that you've been trying to tackle for a long time, maybe haven't been able to get just the right solution or innovative idea in place. Give that to them and let them make of it what they will. They're going to be your most motivated employee. They're going to be appreciative for the opportunity, not only to take on a risky goal, but to have someone who can mentor them along the way. What an opportunity. They're going to see that as a golden opportunity, and you're going to have an opportunity to solve some of your problems that you've been trying to deal with, but yet in a more cost-efficient way.
Are we just talking about people who are young and some people are old, and young people become old and they'll begin to adopt different attitudes, or are we talking about some fresh attitudes that are out there that we need to contend with?
Well, we certainly recognize that people do change as they age and as we go through different seasons of life and experiences and things like that. So set that aside for a moment, though. We do think that there are some distinct characteristics that come with the Generation Y generation, given where they sit in history, their advantage of coming of age with technology so that it's a seamless part of who they are and how they function. We think that they also have a social orientation and connectivity that we haven't seen in previous generations. They truly see the world as a smaller place and as a place that they can reach out and create relationships supported by technology, not completely apart from face-to-face, but the notion to them of having a colleague halfway around the world is not a barrier, whereas we know that a lot of our more mature generations struggle with some of those aspects of becoming more global in focus.
Well, what do you say to a client that has, say, less than 10% millennials or Gen Ys, and why should they care about what these young people are, even if they're as dandy as you say they are? Why bother?
Why bother? Well, first of all, I would want to know what industry they're in, because, for example, if they are a retailer and if the Generation Y demographic is important to them from a selling perspective, a customer perspective, then first of all, I would question why they only have 10% in their workforce. That's too few. But then I would also want to know where those 10% are. If they're all at the bottom of the org chart, so to speak, and have no ability to influence the way that they're marketing, their sales strategies, the way they're set up from a retail perspective, how they're utilizing online technologies to sell their products, their branding. If none of those young people are plugged in meaningful ways in any of those areas, plus they're trying to sell to that age group, I would say major business disconnect there, and they're not going to be as successful as they would want to be.
But I'm still wondering what the if the millennials don't have some blind spots in dealing with the boomers, what do you see going the other way?
Uh-huh. I'm definitely thinking they do have some blind spots. I think that, you know, the millennials have been primarily raised by the baby boom generation, and in large part they have been they've been taken real good care of. They've been put on pedestals. They were born and raised in the era of the child. They've been told that they were great, that they could do anything that they put their mind to, which is a wonderful thing to raise a child with, but it could also be somewhat of a frustrating reality that you expect to play out once you reach adulthood, because we all know that life isn't fair, things aren't always easy, you know, things don't get just handed to you. I think that some of the resentment or the vocalness that we see of young people in the work world has to do with a bit of that disillusionment. You know, I was told that I was great, and now I come here and I'm making copiers on the copy machine.
Sure, sure. Well, speaking of this disillusionment, we have some market data that says that something approaching 80% of young people have some question about the competence of business leaders given the sort of economic meltdown we're in. Where do you think that's coming from, and what do you think the implications are for me if I'm a CEO?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's very profound, actually, because if you're a CEO today, and you have young people in your workforce, you have to realize that they're probably not giving you the benefit of the doubt that you're competent, that you should be in your job, that you're ethical, and that you're making the right decisions. So, in other words, you have to earn their respect in that way. And I think that a lot of CEOs would probably feel very resentful of that, because obviously they worked really hard to get where they are. They continue to work really hard to stay where they are. And the notion that some young person in their workplace wouldn't even be giving them the benefit of the doubt about their competence probably would be really grating to them. But it is the reality that we're dealing with, and I think for very good reasons. If you break it down and you look at what's happened over the last 20 to 30 years, and this is the critical time when these people were coming of age, they've seen companies that nobody ever thought would go away completely dissolve over ethical issues, poor business judgment, you know, missteps in terms of strategic planning. And so they have some really, really impressive data points that they can point to.
Well, one thing that I'll have to explain to my executives, however, is that why should these kids not have to go through the chairs, pay their dues, that sort of thing? I mean, it sounds great what you're talking about, but we still have many executives who feel there's only a certain way that you become an executive. Mm-hmm. What do you say to them?
Well, I would say the chairs aren't going away necessarily, but they're going to be rearranged, and you're going to be incentivized to sit in that chair in a different way. And your results might be characterized and quantified in new ways. So in other words, there's still going to be an opportunity to be viewed as someone who excels in your industry, in your respective organization. There's still an opportunity to be a hero, but we're mixing it up a little bit and saying we can't just assume that the people who are at the top of the org chart today are the people who should remain there throughout the 21st century, and that they shouldn't think in new ways about some of the talent that lies below them, and that things, because they're becoming far more complex, there aren't going to be single individuals who are going to be able to nail all aspects of a solution. They're going to have to start to work more collaboratively. And we've not been good at that in the 20th century. We've been very competitive with one another, leaping over each other, playing games to get to the next box above our counterparts. That's not going to cut it. That's a distraction. We need to remove that and say, you can be a hero and still work collectively and cooperatively with your colleagues.
So you're saying that there can be individual recognition as long as there's group recognition, and
I
the
think it's
two
going to be
working
critical.
together. Well, thank you, Leah. It's been very provocative, and I appreciate your time with us.
Sure. Thank you so much, Stan.